Is it a thing with drummers that do you think you got close to him because you guys can sit there and talk drums specifically? Like he's another guy. He's in your, he's a guy who came up with you. He toured with you and all of that. Is that the
Yeah.
close bond? Would you guys sit
I
and
mean,
talk about drumming?
it's part of it. We really, on other levels, personal levels, but certainly musically, yeah. I mean, we would often talk to each other and say, we're both drummers that have been in rock bands that are for a long time, still going, still relevant and playing stadiums. How lucky are we? But we also had, we're both married and have 3 small children, relatively the same age. And so we could often, talk about just our lives like that, and sort of, it was, we crazy wives, crazy lives kind of thing, so, and it was fun.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
No, because we could really relate on that level on top of, just our friendship.
I don't know why we get into this on this show, but many times I asked Lars from Metallica this question: who is the greatest drummer of all time? Was it John Bonham?
Yes.
Neil? It was John Bonham, right? It was not Neil Peart. Yeah, it was John Bonham, right?
Well,
why is that's what I said. Yes.
Okay, you're a smart, handsome, powerful man.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for saying that. I like to be right once in a while because he hit, what is it? He hit the drums so hard?
No, and often people think that because of his sound in Led Zeppelin, he did play with the ferocious energy, but he had the finesse as well. Wasn't just a pounder. He played, very dynamically and played beautifully and musically for that music. But he was an innovator, Howard, from the very beginning, from note 1 of the first Led Zeppelin record, Good Times, Bad Times, he had his sound.
Right.
And he had the way he played, and he was doing this thing with his foot that no one had really done in rock and roll. And it was all there right at the beginning, 19 years old. That's rare. Of course, he grew and changed as a musician, but from the beginning, and that band just changed everything from the kind of tinny 60s to the full Technicolor 70s and that sound and the way they played. But he, to me, was the best rock drummer for sure. Neil, no diss to, there's many other great drummers, and a lot of people do. Keith Moon and Ginger Baker and a lot of these guys, and Neil as well. But for my money, it's John Bonham. His swing, the way that he played, made that music so just danceable. He was incredible.
And when you're a young guy trying to figure out how to be a professional musician, what is the trick? You sit there, would you listen to, let's say, Charlie Watts playing the drums on a Rolling Stones record and try to do an imitation of that at first so you can learn how to play the drums and then you find your own style? Is that the trick to it?
That's one way to do it, and I certainly did that. I played along to all those records and Led Zeppelin, Rolling Stones, and the list goes on. Yeah, you would put the headphones on, you down in the basement, and play along to those records and try to emulate the feel of that and play like that if you could. And it was an exciting thing for a teenager. You close your eyes and you think you're in Black Sabbath or whatever, I loved it. But at some point, you have to find your own thing. But yeah, that definitely helps because you're playing with music. You're not just playing by yourself. And it's important also to technically to get your chops up and play all the things that you need to do so you can realize that what you hear and hopefully facilitate that on your instrument. But yeah, I mean, I'd spend hours in the basement, and my mother, I grew up in Detroit, and she would say, "I'm going out shopping now. It'd be a good time to practice." Go, oh,
right.
Okay. I'd go downstairs, and then she would flick on the lights on and off when she was home, and I'd be like, "Oh wow, man, a light show! This is my first light show."
Can you imagine? You know, my mother was. She goes, "You can play the clarinet. That's a nice instrument. You could play piano." She goes, "But I'm not listening to those fakakta drums." She would say, you know, she wouldn't let me practice like drum. Like it's got to be a very tolerant parent who would allow someone to be a drummer. Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
you must love her for that. Yeah,
I
for
do.
sure.
And as much trouble as I got in, Howard, back in the day as a young rebel, she never took the drums away from me. She's, you know, I would get grounded. That was her form of punishment, often for long periods of time. Maybe that's why I got to be so good on, or at least I could play well. Go down and play the drums. And you know, I couldn't do other things, but she never took that away from me. And
did your mom get to see your great success with the Chili Peppers, or was
Howard, my mother is 95 years old.
Wow, that's awesome.
Living in the house, in the basement I'm talking about, in the house I grew up with, still to this day. It's like a Time Warp, you know, museum over there, you know, with the blue shag carpeting and you know, my little twin bed in my room. And why don't you want to stay here when you come home, Chad? I'm like, Mom, I'm 63 now, and I'm 60 years old, but thanks for But yes, she has. She's and it's one of my great joys to, you know, we were just inducted into the walk on Hollywood, and she was so happy. You know, she was like, "Oh, Carol Burnett is on the Walk of Fame. Oh, that's really something. Oh, goodness, that's amazing."
You know, I don't know why I had this impression.